All right, folks, thank you so much for joining us here at Golden State Times as we await Jen Psaki for the White House press briefing. If you haven't yet, please share the live stream on social media. It seems like we're completely shadow banned when it comes to these live streams. So we depend on your help sharing the live stream to keep Golden State Times live here on YouTube. And the reason that I'm saying that we're 100% shadow banned is because, you know, there's other channels with like way less subscribers. And they come up on search and everything else, but we don't. So if you guys can help us out by sharing the live stream, that would be fantastic. Thank you so much for your continued help and support. So we're going to be updating you guys on everything that is going on in the news right now. Everything is on our website, goldenstatetimes.com. Again, that's www.goldenstatetimes.com for all updates and everything that we are covering right now. These are the headlines going on right now. So this is regarding world news. Germany says that Russia will lose energy customers over Ukraine. And what they mean by that, LNG, a lot of countries, including Germany, the UK, and others, are no longer going to get their LNG from Russia. And the list of countries are starting to grow that they're starting to pull away from buying their LNG from Russia. Let's see here. As you guys probably know, there's a bunch of, the market is very, very unstable right now. Stocks dive, oil prices soar, Bitcoin falls after Russia attacks Ukraine. Now, the stocks overnight fell 600 points. I'm not 100% sure what is at right now. Let's see. Give me 1 second. Okay, so it's down a little bit. It fell 600 points overnight, but 243 as of right now. So it's still down. Oil hit over $100. Let's see what the oil prices is now. Let's see. It's over 100 a barrel, but crude oil price as of right now, I think. Let's see. It's at $92 as of right now. So it's a little bit lower than 100, but it did hit 100 as of last night. And it says that Bitcoin prices keep falling. It says, meanwhile, the prices of major cryptocurrencies continue to slump this week as the Russian-Ukraine crisis has boiled over and crypto buyers and other investors sought safer havens like the US dollar and gold. Bitcoin fell to $36,000 Thursday, a 4% drop after being at a high of $44,000 only a week ago. Ethereum is down 6% to $2,464. And Solana is down 5% to $85.34. So it looks like other stock markets from around the world are also down. Sydney is down 3%. Tokyo and Seoul, Korea fell 2%. European market fell 2.5% to 4%. Russian main stock market was off more than 35% as on Thursday. So that's the reason why Biden in his earlier speech said that the Russian stock market was collapsing. So it says that it shredded over $150 billion in value, 35%. That's a massive, massive plunge. And it seems to be getting worse. It says U.S. gas prices on the rise. A lot of people did not believe me. Or if they did, they said, oh, you know, it might happen, you know, longer than what I've predicted. But in reality, that's not the way it is. $7 a gallon is coming. It is coming. If it's not here yet. So let's see the prices of gas right now. So gas prices as of right now, let's see. Current average $4 around the country already. So they're on their way to hitting $4. If you have checked either last night or this morning, what is the gas prices where you live? Let me know in the chat. What are the gas prices where you're living right now? So right now here in California, it's a little bit over $5 a gallon. But it's reaching $6 very soon. So to continue on the gas prices rising, it says that Biden announced sanctions against China after Putin sent military forces into the Ukraine. Experts now predict that the U.S. and the EU will respond to the latest hostilities with stiffer economic sanctions, potentially inviting Russia to respond with its own measures, meaning oil. So let's see what happens with that. So let's go back to the news here. So in business news, we have that Ford is recalling over 250,000 heavy-duty pickups that it says whose drive shafts can fracture. So it says Ford is recalling nearly 250,000 heavy-duty pickup trucks in the U.S. because the drive shafts can fracture, and cause a loss of power. Go figure. The F-250s and the F-350s built between the years 2017 to 2022. So if you have a F-250 or a F-350 between the years 2017 through 2022, you better check your recalls, check your VINs to see if you have a recall on your heavy-duty pickup truck. Ford says that in documents posted by the National Highway Traffic Administration, the heat and noise insulators below the body can loosen and touch the drive shaft. The shaft can fracture, causing a power loss or loss of control if it hits the ground. So that's a very, very big problem there. It says failures also could lead to trucks roll if they stop and the parking brake isn't on. Dealers will inspect the drive shafts and repair them if necessary and properly attach the insulators. Owners will be notified by letter starting April the 4th. April. So they're going to wait into April. Who knows how many crashes are going to happen? Who knows how many fatalities and all this stuff? But Ford says, don't worry, guys. We're going to let you guys know if you're part of the recall up until April. Let's see how many people die until then. That's how Ford is. Go figure. And that's coming from someone that actually owns a Ford vehicle. Never again, I'm telling you guys right now, never again will I ever buy Ford. Garbage trucks and cars, to be honest with you. Worst of the worst, but that's how you learn. So, in other news, let's see. U.S. volunteers evacuating Americans from Ukraine. This comes courtesy of the Washington Times, and it says U.S. volunteers evacuating Americans from the Ukraine is starting to happen. So Americans are wanting to go to the Ukraine to get people out. So give me a second. Let me check to see if the footage is almost. If we have footage here, so we can switch over. Just give me 1 second here. Please share the live stream on social media. Oh, we have footage. And the hot mic too. So let's switch over. All right then. Let's see here. We'll continue the news in just a second, but let's switch over to the White House. As you guys can probably hear already in the background. Alrighty. Alright, so that is live footage from inside the White House press briefing room. White House press briefing set to begin very soon. Thank you so much for choosing Golden State Times as your stream of choice. Let's continue with the news real quick before we actually begin here. All updates and scoops, breaking news, politics, and everything is on our website, goldenstatetimes.com. Again, that's www.goldenstatetimes.com. So in world news, it says Brazilian soccer stars are stuck in Ukraine. They beg for help from their government. So they're begging the Brazilian government to get them out. This comes courtesy of goldenstatetimes.com. And it says, Brazilian soccer players who play in Ukraine made desperate pleas to their government Thursday to help them escape the war-torn nation, saying that they're going through chaos. At least 10 South American stars, including Brazilian international forward David Neres, begged for aid as players from rival Ukraine sides huddled together in a hotel room with the group of wives and children, of their wives and children. So their whole family is stuck in the crosshairs in this tension between Russia and Ukraine. And now they're begging the Brazilian government to get them out. And who knows if the Brazilian government is going to do anything or if they're going to ask from the assistance of the Americans, of the United States. So let's see what happens with that. Stay tuned. As you guys know by now, if you guys saw the speech by Biden earlier today, he said that American forces are not going to go into the Ukraine to help them fight, against Russia. But he said that if Russia continues their aggression and actually attacks one of the NATO countries, then that is when the United States is going to get involved. I mean, with troops on the ground and stuff like that. But not until then, according to Biden. But stay tuned for that, because as you guys probably saw yesterday's interview with Laura Ingraham, President Trump said that's the next phase. It's going to happen. And President Trump knows exactly what he's talking about. He knows how these things work. And like he said, the next step is boots on the ground, American soldiers being sent in. But it's only a matter of time. Things need to happen in between from now to then for troops on the ground, American soldiers going in. But like President Trump said, it's going to happen. It's just a matter of time. All right, folks. So in other news, I don't know if you guys know this, but Kyle Rittenhouse is planning to sue pretty much everybody. They're planning to sue all the mainstream media, pretty much. They're also planning to sue now. He wants to sue LeBron James and Joe Biden, according to a new report. It says Kyle Rittenhouse, the teen who beat the homicide charges against him, wants to sue LeBron James after the basketball player allegedly defamed him on social media, according to new reports. Rittenhouse announced plans to sue A-listers and media organizations earlier this week, but since added James to the list because of the comments that he made against him.
Sorry.
Yeah. Joe, good man, yes, it's a very good man. And his wife, Elaine. I'm gonna see them on Saturday. I'm gonna cover the principals first.
All right, folks. So as you guys can hear, there's a lot more reporters in, or
That's the
what should we call them? Fake news in the room now.
Oh, what did Joe have to say?
So we're able to hear a little bit more on the hot mic. Make sure you guys please share the live stream on social media. Thanks so much for your continued support.
How do you know?
I can't remember how I met him, but that's the first time we've had dinner.
That's great. Where'd you go?
Threats from American Western because they could manage. The President announced that US troops will move through Europe here to NATO's eastern flank, and yet more will be sent from America. The message, Ukraine may be falling, but NATO countries will not. It's going down
Yeah.
All right, folks. So as you guys probably remember, Hunter becomes the hunted. I don't know if you guys remember that quote. Hunter becomes the hunted. It says, the walls are closing in on Hunter Biden. You heard right, folks. It says, hot water for Hunter Biden is reaching a boiling point. The U.S. Attorney of Delaware investigating his business affairs has been busy subpoenaing his bank accounts and calling his ex-girlfriends to testify in front of a grand jury about his wild spending sprees. So they are not only investigating his business dealings in Delaware, but they're also investigating him through the IRS. The IRS says that he owes over, I think, $500,000 or a little bit over $1 million to the IRS, and now they're investigating him because of the way that he was filing his taxes. Not that he didn't pay his taxes, that he evaded tax by shady tax deductions. And that's where they get you. That's where they get you. And it says Devin Archer, his former business partner, best friend, and fellow Yale alum, faces sentencing Monday for 4 years for being convicted of over $60 million in scheme to defraud one of the poorest Indian tribes in America. That is horrible. Prosecutors from the Southern District of New York have recommended to the U.S. District Judge Ronnie Abrams that Archer serve 30 months in prison, the same as his co-defendant, Bavin Coney. So they're getting closer and closer to Hunter Biden, because the hunter will become the hunted. Pretty crazy stuff.
Just push it back again?
Also, in business news, Elon Musk and his brother Kimball are both facing insider trading probes from the SEC. So, if you are not in government, if you're not Nancy Pelosi, if you're not other Democrats, insider trading, you never get in trouble for insider trading, right? But if you're Elon Musk or anybody else, anything that you do could be insider trading if you are in different parts of business. So it looks like Elon Musk and his younger brother are being investigated by the Securities and Exchange Commission over whether the siblings violated insider trading laws, according to the Wall Street Journal. The probes reportedly centers on Kimball Musk's sale in November of 88,500 shares in Tesla, worth over $108 million at the time. which allegedly occurred one day before Elon Musk posted a Twitter poll asking if he should sell 10% of his stake in Tesla. So that is the reason why they're investigating Elon Musk's little brother. Younger brother, right? Yeah. So insider trading only for the commoners here in America, but not for the elite like Nancy Pelosi.
4:30, everybody. Yeah.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. He does. That's great.
All right, folks. So if you haven't yet, please share the live stream on social media. We're getting shadow banned here at Golden State Times. So make sure you guys please share the live stream. Thank you so much for your continued help and support. So give me 1 second. Let me get some information regarding something that I just remembered. So it looks like CPAC started today. Yeah, so it looks like CPAC started today.
Yes, thank you, pals.
And what's her face is about to speak. Guilfoyle? Kimberly Guilfoyle, I think that's her name. Nobody really cares about her right now, to be honest with you. Nobody gives a crap. CPAC is going on right now. That's the funniest thing. Let's see. DeSantis already spoke at CPAC, I guess. Since it's from Florida, most likely that's the reason why he spoke first.
Well, anyway, Joey.
But because everything that's going on, nobody gives a crap that CPAC is going on. So in other news,
He's living in a nice place too, Connecticut. Yeah, that's right.
Nice guy.
Yeah, nice guy. And you know, I covered his first campaign when he won the nomination for Congress. He definitely beat incumbent. But that redistricting.
Took him out.
Yeah.
Yeah, I covered it briefly.
so in other news, as you guys probably saw on our Twitter at Gold State Times, thousands of Russians are protesting Putin's assault on Ukraine.
He always lands on his feet.
If you guys saw that, we have some videos up on our Twitter account at Gold State Times. Russians are protesting the invasion in St. Petersburg Square. So if you guys haven't seen those videos, make sure you go and check them out on our Twitter at Gold State Times.
Yeah.
In other news, Russia has taken control of Chernobyl nuclear plant, says Ukrainian official. You heard it right, folks. This is an advisor to Ukrainian President Zelenskyy said the country has lost control of Chernobyl nuclear power plant after Ukrainian forces sought to defend it from Russian troops.
Exactly right. Can't tell you how many
So it says that the advisor, quoted by the Associated Press and other news agencies, said that after senseless attack of the Russians, it is impossible to say that Chernobyl nuclear power plant is safe. The IAEA also said that it has been informed by Ukraine that unidentified armed forces had taken control of all plant facilities with no casualties or destruction to the site. So it looks like Russia has taken control of the Chernobyl nuclear plant.
No. See what's happening there.
So in other news here, it says images show empty airspace over Ukraine and its border with Russia. It says the airspace over Ukraine and its border with Russia is empty according to flight tracking websites, with heavy air traffic apparently avoiding the whole region entirely. It's pretty crazy because you can actually see the circle around Ukraine. All the planes are going around it, but not through it. Very interesting stuff. Let me show you guys what I'm talking about here. So as you can see, this is Ukrainian airspace right here. And all the planes are going around it. There's like a big, huge circle here, like if they were under a dome or something. Very interesting stuff. Here, look at this. This is the whole border of Ukraine. All of this right here. And it's all being avoided as planes go around it in a big, huge circle. So that's what's going on in Ukraine right now, folks. Let's move on to the next one. And as you guys know, global oil prices soar above $100 and could go much higher, very much higher. It says oil prices surged to $100 per barrel after Russia launched an invasion of Ukraine. So the time that it actually hit $100 was when the UN was delivering their emergency meeting last night. So in the middle of that live stream, that's when it hit $100 per barrel. And as this highest today, it hit 105. All right, folks, in other news, here in the U.S., it says over half of U.S. abortions are now done with pills and not surgery. And as you guys probably saw on our website, goldenstatetimes.com, we actually reported this maybe 2 or 3 months ago, that the Democrats were planning to allow those pills to be sold and delivered through the mail to the USPS. Now, the Republicans have come out and tried to block that because as of right now, you're not allowed to do it. You're not allowed to buy, Plan B or any of those other abortion-inducing pills through the mail. You cannot get them through the mail. You have to get them directly from your doctor and then go in person to go get them from your pharmacy. But what the Democrats were trying to do is they were trying to allow you to purchase them online and then to get them delivered through the USPS. They were trying to partner with the USPS to facilitate one-day shipping for those abortion pills. And it says over half of the U.S. abortions now are done with pills and not with surgery, according to a new report. It says more than half of U.S. abortions are now done with pills rather than their surgery, an upward trend that spiked during the pandemic with increase of telemedicine. And it says in 2020, pills accounted for 54% of U.S. abortions, up from 44% back in 2019. The preliminary numbers come from the Guttmacher Institute of Research Group that supports those rights. So that's what's going on right now. So in more national news, like state news, LA County eases COVID-19 indoor mask mandates. As you guys probably know, here in California, they lifted mask mandates, but LA County had already kept them. But now they're going to take away, or they're going to ease COVID-19 indoor mask mandates in your city, in your town, or in your county, or however it is in your place where you live. Have they already lifted all COVID-19 restrictions, 6 feet apart in mask mandates and all that stuff? Have they been lifted in your town? Let me know in the chat.
All right.
We are awaiting Jen to come out. As you guys can see, there's still a lot of empty seats. All these seats have to be filled before we begin.
4:30.
Is that the VP video?
So we have some breaking news regarding the Ukraine. So it says Ukraine's health minister says 57 Ukrainians have been killed since the beginning of the invasion last night. This one comes courtesy of GoldenStateTimes.com, and it says Ukraine's health minister says 57 Ukrainians killed by Russians. It says Ukrainian Health Minister Viktor Lashenko says 57 Ukrainians have been killed as a result of the Russian invasion, and 169 more have been wounded. So we have 57 casualties, 169 wounded since the beginning of the invasion. We have some news here from Fox, and it says Russians react with shock, outrage on the attack on Ukraine. It says that Russians says that the war between Russia and Ukraine would have broken out. So then she woke up. Okay, so give me 1 second here. Oh, so it's talking about the protests that are going right now in St. Petersburg Square. If you haven't seen that, it's on our Twitter at Gold State Times. We have some video of that. People protesting in Russia regarding the invasion of Ukraine. So we have some breaking news here. It says U.S. orders Russia Embassy number 2 diplomat out of Washington. So they're kicking the Russian diplomats out of Washington, D.C. It says the United States expelled Russia's second-ranking diplomat from Washington Thursday in response to the Kremlin's ouster of the American embassy's number 2 official from Moscow earlier this month. So it says that just minutes after Biden announced additional economic sanctions against Russia following Putin's invasion of the Ukraine, a senior State Department official revealed the expulsion to reporters. The Russian embassy was reportedly informed of Minister Counselor Sergei Tropolov's departure on Wednesday, one day before the attack on Ukraine began. It says Tropolov's expulsion comes just 1 week after Russia ordered Bart Gorman, the U.S. Deputy Chief of Mission in Moscow, out of the country. So they expelled the American out of Russia, and now we are expelling the Russian out of America. And this is also breaking right now. The Pentagon orders another 7,000 American troops to Europe. So just recently we sent 5,000, and then before that we sent 10,000. So that's 10,000, 15,000, around 23,000, 23, 24,000. So around 24,000 troops are already in Europe. Let's just leave it at that. As of right now, just not even a minute ago, the Pentagon ordered another 7,000 to go out. Most of them are going to Poland. That's what the report is. Well, that's where they have been going for the last few weeks. So this one comes courtesy of the Washington Times, and it says, give me 1 second. All right, give me 1 second, folks. I'm going to get this figured out.
Right?
All right, so this comes courtesy again of the Washington Times, and it says, at CPAC, DeSantis promotes Florida's rise in defiance of COVID lockdowns and mandates. It says Florida Governor Ron DeSantis drew wild cheers from an enthusiastic audience at the CPAC conference on Thursday, touting his state's resistance to COVID lockdowns and mandates and his rejection of the left-wing ideology and political correctness that has come to dominate Democrat politics and the Biden administration. So DeSantis told CPAC, as Biden foundered, Florida is leading on issue after issue. So it looks like Ron DeSantis is really making his case to run for president in 2024. What do you guys think?
I doubt it.
So in other news, so as the Russian military came in, as bombs were coming down, guess who was in Ukraine filming something? Sean Penn. Not one of my favorite actors, but he was there. And it says, Sean Penn in Ukraine filming documentary as Russia invades. It says, as battle rage in Ukraine, Sean Penn was on the scene. The politically active actor was spotted Thursday on the front row of a press briefing in Kiev, where high-ranking Ukrainian officials were discussing the day's invasion by Russia. It says the 61-year-old movie star has apparently been working on a documentary about escalating tensions in the country since last year and flew to Ukraine earlier this week to get a first-hand look at the war. Well, guess what? He got what he wanted. He was looking for trouble and he found it. And now he's going to be bitching and complaining to have the Americans get him out. Even though Biden said pretty much, you're on your own. Hey, you never know. You know, all the movie experience might help them. They're trained in combat training, aren't they? Maybe that will come in handy. Because according to Biden, he said you're on your own. If you're an American in Ukraine and you did not get out before the invasion, you are on your own. Those were the words of Biden. So Sean Penn better brush off those combat training classes that he took.
saying, I gotta take this. Hello? Well, you know why I'm calling.
So Sean Penn, he was doing a documentary about the Ukrainians having tension with the Russians. Like I said, he got what he wanted. He wanted to go over there and document the problems and the war, and he got exactly what he bargained for.
Is that true?
And now he's all distraught and begging the Americans to come and get him out, or how for him try to get out of Ukraine so he can come back to the U.S. But who knows what's going to happen?
I certainly don't support things people say, people say a lot of stuff. But the way it works,
Someone said leave the SOB over there. Like I said, Biden told them. Biden told Americans, like, you know what? If you are in Ukraine, this was what, last Friday? He's like, if you're in Ukraine, you better get out now. That's what he told everybody. He said, like, if you're an American and you're living in Ukraine, get out now. Because if you are still there when the invasion comes, you're on your own.
now, I don't have a clue who would run for it. I never had a guy with boots on the ground, so he did say something. But I just don't know. I looked out there, the governor, for the election. I don't know what the previous governor, I just, something like that, yeah. Right, and I don't know.
So in other news, this is regarding China and Taiwan. So it says Taiwan reports 9 Chinese aircraft in defense zone. It says Taiwan's defense ministry said Thursday that 9 Chinese aircraft had entered its air defense identification zone just hours after Russia had launched an invasion into Ukraine. And a lot of people had been guessing that. They said if Russia invades Ukraine, then most likely China will invade Taiwan. And that, you know, it could be a big possibility. They're going to take advantage. The U.S. is so focused and not paying attention and just looking at what's going on with Russia and Ukraine, and sneaky China is going to come from behind and just take over Taiwan. That's a big possibility. So Taiwan reports 9 Chinese aircraft in their defense zone. So this is some breaking news right now on our website, goldenstatetimes.com. Again, that's www.goldenstatetimes.com. It says U.S. moving fighter jets to Baltic Sea, Black Sea regions. The U.S. is moving 6 fighter jets to the Baltic region and the Black Sea to support NATO's defense capabilities as Russia invasion of Ukraine begins. 6 F-35 Lightning II aircraft assigned to the 34th Fighter Squadron operating from Germany were deployed to the region on Thursday to support NATO's air policing missions, the Air Force said in a statement. The aircraft are part of the forces that Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin repositioned to the region on Monday. So those jets are there to support NATO and their policing capabilities. All right, folks, like I've been warning everybody, this comes courtesy of CBS News, and this broke just right now. They barely published it. And it says, $4 a gallon on gas across the U.S. by April. Russia's invasion of Ukraine to drive up prices, experts say. $4 a gallon of gas. And that's in small towns. So if you live in nowhere, Pennsylvania, if you live in a town of 500 people and your gas is still like around $3 a gallon, well, prepare for 4. If you're in a big city like LA, San Francisco, San Diego, New York, or wherever else, Philadelphia or whatever, then prepare for $7 a gallon. And I've been warning people for the last week and a half. And it has just been reported. But they're saying by April, which I think it's false. I don't think it's going to be by April. It's most definitely going to be by the middle of March. So prepare for $4 a gallon.
What's her story?
What a day, what a day, what a day, what a day.
So someone said in the chat, let me see, where is that? Where is that? I just saw it. Something about, oh, here we go. So Nita Marie says, I literally just passed up in California's cheapest for gas is $4.59. You must live in a very small town in California to get it at $4.59. Because gas right now in big cities like LA, let's say for instance, downtown LA, it is $5.65. And in smaller towns, let's say of, for instance, San Diego, you're looking at $5.15. So $4.59 is very cheap for California right now. So wherever you found that gas for $4.59, go fill it up right now. Every single car that you have, every freaking gas can that you can find, go get it now, because $4.50 is extremely cheap here in California.
During the Trump time, like, we had so much free time, I could look up, sit anywhere and see all this stuff.
So our great moderator Karen Hall says Gary says $8 a gallon in the UK. $8 a gallon. Yeah, Europe. Gas has been expensive in Europe for a very long time. But there's some people that are saying that in some parts of Europe it's $11. $11 a gallon. Well, when you convert euros to dollars, But $11 a gallon, that is some crazy stuff. I forgot what country they said that it was at $11. I don't know if it was the Netherlands, I think, or Sweden or something like that. Whatever country, or Denmark, I don't really remember which one. But $11. And they pay it like if it's nothing. Maybe they're angry, but they still pay it, which is crazy.
Yep.
Yeah, so I was saying earlier when I was talking about the recall of all those F-250s, F-350s, they're recalling like 200,000 of them from 2017 to 2022, and I said I have a Ford car. I have a Ford Explorer. I used to fill that thing under Trump for $40, even though it's like a 16 gallon tank. I used to fill it up with $40, $50, give or take. Now it's $130. probably even more now. But you know, the last time I filled up is 130 bucks. So an electric car sounds really good right now, to be honest with you, even if I don't care much for electric cars, but you know, electric car sounds pretty good right now. Yeah, for those that have a Tesla, I'm very, very jealous right now. Because how much is it, like a kilowatt? Like 10 cents? People are paying like a little bit under $200 a month to charge up their Tesla in their homes every month. Now you're spending that one time filling up your gasoline-powered car. $200 is for like 1.5 fill-ups, you know? And people are paying like around less than $200 to charge up their cars every day if you have one of those superchargers in your house. That's funny. Someone said in a power outage, Tesla owners will have to burn gas in a generator to charge up. Well, yeah, that's true if you don't have solar in your house, I guess. But if you have solar in your house, then you have to worry about power outages, which is pretty awesome.
What? No. What did you say, 5:30?
Oh, man. Okay, hold on. Give me 1 second, folks. Let me get... Okay, someone brought some very interesting news here. Please don't tell me that this is true. This is going to be so... All right, give me 1 second. Let me see if what this lady said. is actually true. So breaking right now, it says Ukraine reports 350 Russian troops were killed on the first day of the invasion. 350 Russian troops down. All right, so let me see. All right, so we also have some breaking news here. This has to do with world news, and it says Putin and Macron are set to discuss the Russian military operation in Ukraine. So Macron from France is going to be talking to Putin via teleconference in just a little while.
Hi, this is Dan. I was wondering, I just got a call, but hang up. Right. But that was really fun. So they
Is that why?
a birthday party?
Is that why they?
Why the cake?
Priorities.
Well, you gotta have your priorities. Oh,
That's why it's 5:30.
It's a tough room out there.
So I guess Jen Psaki is having a birthday party at somewhere in the back.
Okay, let me know. Okay, cheers.
Hey, at least we're not financed.
Hi, Dan. I was trying again. Yes, it was.
All right, folks, so let me show you guys something real quick. For those that don't live in California and don't believe the numbers, for gas prices here in California, well, here you go. $6.21, $6.23, $6.25, diesel at $6.25. Now, this is bad, right? These numbers are pretty bad for people that commute to work and stuff like that. They use their cars, regarding their job, or Uber, Lyft, DoorDash, all that stuff. This is horrible numbers for them. This right here is horrible for everybody, because this means that the prices of stuff at your local grocery store are going to skyrocket. It means anything that you purchase and get delivered is going to skyrocket. It means that everything that you purchase, no matter where you're going to go, if you're going to buy utilities or stuff or cleaning supplies or food or whatever, it's going to go up. This is what we should also be keeping a very, very close eye on, because this means higher prices for us all, no matter if this number really means much to you or not. Because you might have a Tesla or an electric vehicle and not care about these prices and be laughing at people that still have gas-powered cars about these prices, telling you tell you so to get an electric car or whatever. But this is going to affect you, whether you have an electric car or not. It does not matter.
I mean, they're great. Some especially, they don't feel like.
Right.
So they're tough.
Yeah. Yeah. Right, well, I guess the question is, if you look at the, it's been there since 11, two ways. One, that it could wait 6 months and say, oh my gosh, it's urgent, or that it's stable enough that it could wait. Well, the question is whether we rush to do it now and take it.
You sat down, you're looking forward to it.
I'm trying to figure that out, or whether we put it
I
off to
know.
January 2nd next year. That's the only choice, it's not do it or not do it, it's only for sure.
Oh, I see it, yeah.
Right.
Yes, they live in interesting times.
These are definitely. Oh,
Right, if
okay.
Sat down with such
So finally, we're gonna get this done, you know?
Right?
If it becomes so dramatic, does that indicate somehow the prognosis of doing is worse, or just that it makes it more painful for her till she gets it done?
Well, someone told me.
Yeah.
You gonna get your coat?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll stay here.
Yeah.
It's very weird.
Yeah, so, we get a little.
I will tell you about that. They're working
Okay.
from home very well.
Yep, and I might have her talk to you directly, because it's
No, it
really,
can't be the,
it's feeling on her, and I don't want to impose on her whatever decision she also does in budget, so it's, she's got to balance, she can balance how she's feeling about her health versus her budget, as well, so I just way I can help at least lay the ground for her to decide. The one thing she was wondering, and the office didn't want to talk about it, and said, well, it'll be up to you, but they
I
didn't.
get in here maybe
do it.
once
But
a week.
is there any way to pay the installments on it after? You know, I think you pay some now and then break up some of the rest of the balance, or a few months after.
There?
No. No. Okay, well, that's not and, oh, and it keeps saying, what would happen if she said, well, do one now, and do one later? That's probably not a great idea.
Six. Hey, John, you leaving us?
I'm coming back, don't worry.
You gotta at least bring a hat back.
Gonna get something to eat.
Get some pizza and bring it back for the troops.
Yes, okay, deal. Little pepperoni.
Right.
That's nice.
Yeah, I would think so, because on one side, I'm on the other side, that's one, for next to each other. You do one, and then, you know. get
So the
back
clown
in.
that's talking right now, this guy right here, let me circle his head right here. This guy right here is from Playboy. Can you believe that Playboy has a White House representative?
My word.
That's the same asshat that would go into the back and start screaming at Kayleigh McEnany to hurry up. I don't know if you guys remember that guy. He would get all mad and then he'll go to the back and tell him to hurry
I
up.
did that down to here, but up here.
It's crazy how the White House has a Playboy White House correspondent. So crazy too. Even though they even got a press credential. That is astounding to me.
Oh my gosh, I'm so happy to see you. Hi, I saw you in the Eastern, but you were Yeah, let's do it on live show.
Oh, not me, I have to,
Pull it to spawn.
yeah, I have to-
Hope it will generate.
Oh, the good old days.
so Brian's, I had to be, there you go, Brian's phone right there. Now. Yep. Got it.
It's funny. Someone in the chat said that he started when Trump was in office. That's not true. He was there during the Obama years too. It wasn't that Trump approved press credentials for Playboy. Trust me, that would be something that Trump would do, but it's not something that Trump did. So don't put it on Trump. That I gotta say that's a Trump thing to do. You know, just give Playboy the press credentials. But no, he was there during Obama's time too.
I accept.
Dun 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 dun. Castle Thunder. Dun 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 dun.
Excellent. Now I have somewhere frustrated.
5:30. Originally at 2.
Up here with such strength of purpose.
I know you did. You were striding. I was
I
impressed.
was striding.
I mean, you were ready for it. I felt bad telling
Anything after people go first.
Oh, yeah.
I had to send it to Brian.
All right.
Brian,
Yeah.
one more time.
you. What'd I do?
One more. Brian. One. That's the face. I edited. Her face is a bit
Oh.
absolutely different.
Took the hair out of my eyes.
I don't know where it is. Which one is it?
Fine, fine. That's all. You should go.
That one?
Oh, that's the one. Like it is. Please.
Oh, that one.
I like this.
You like that one good?
This one. Alright.
I like it.
Thank you.
You were sending to.
Accept.
Dun 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 dun. You're the music.
Mercy's cold out there.
It's, yeah. It's like 75 or 80 yesterday.
It was beautiful, isn't
I
it?
know, took a nice long walk, enjoyed myself. Oh, it's so good, nice people right now. But they had come in and it's like,
Yep.
what's your Twitter? Ah.
I know, when I was nervous. And every time the cabins went around,
Hey now. Like what?
the people are good runners.
Yeah, that's. Well, everyone. People go, Mr. Kareem, I have no idea how call that. I get mistaken for him all the time, not related.
I can see why.
Yeah. But he can run fast, he's tall.
Yeah. Oh, before they-
Brian. Say with my yeah.
Okay, you got it. Well, wait a minute. What's Yeah, you shaved off.
Yeah. Because I followed the database, I was typing myself.
Okay. There you go.
Thank you.
Hello? Hello? Yeah. Yeah, that's, you gotta go over that. No, we did break after that. We need to fix that. No. Well, it is what it is. No, we did break. Yeah, we broke one, because we always break 3 times. So, yeah. But I'm in the briefing room right now. All right, bye. Yeah, I know, right?
That's mine. Yeah. We can switch.
Deixa eu fazer essa linha, porque não é nem coletiva que estava previsto. Foi meio que. Sim, deixa eu fazer, tá bom, não mexe, deixa eu começar. Deixa eu fazer sobre esse feito.
Set. I like the line that Jesus pushes. So I think Jesus would be first. So that's sacrilege.
Putin began war against Ukraine, against the entire democratic world. He wants to destroy my country, our country, everything we've been building, everything we are living for. I'm addressing all Ukrainians. First of all, the Ukrainian military service members, who have already taken on the first blow of the enemy and are resisting. We know the strength of the armed forces of Ukraine. You can. You are indomitable. You are Ukrainians.
Сьогодні Росія розпочала вторгнення.
Today, Russia began an attack on Ukraine.
So that was a speech that Zelenskyy sent over to his military, where he says that you're resilient, you're Ukrainian, you're tough. It says Ukraine President Zelenskyy said in that speech, Putin began war against Ukraine, against the entire democratic world. He wants to destroy my country, our country, everything we've been building, everything we are living for. So right now we're waiting for Jen. It's taking forever to come out again. Like always, these people take forever for them to come out. But we're ready to go, so make sure you guys please share the live stream on social media and click the thumbs up button, folks. It helps us immensely when you click the thumbs up button. Because the thumbs up button is not for them, it's not for Jen, it's not for Biden or his White House or his useless administration. It's for us. It shows us that you appreciate our live streams and that you are ready to see what's going on and you want to stay informed. So in order for us to continue operation here on YouTube, make sure you please share the live stream on social media and you click the thumbs up button. Thanks so much, Great Patriots, for your help and your support.
There it is. I give it 5 to 10 minutes or so. Don't you understand? I have band rehearsal tonight. My band is playing out so don't you know this is all about me? This is all about me.
All right, give me a second, folks. Give me 1 second here.
My band has a gig. Let's do this one. Man, I'm doing Jerry Seinfeld.
You are?
Yeah.
Quite well.
As long as I don't do the Elaine dance.
Oh, please. She shouldn't have done that.
I'm good. I'm at 49. No?
All right, folks. So we have some news from China. So China is rejecting calling the Russian move an invasion, urges citizens in Ukraine to stay home. You're right, folks. That's some crazy stuff. So according to China, what is going on right now in the Ukraine is not an invasion. let me get some more information here for you. It says China rejected calling Russia's move on Ukraine an invasion and urged all sides to exercise restraint on Thursday, even as it advised its citizens there to stay home. So he pretty much saying all Chinese people in Ukraine, make sure you stay home. Ukrainian forces battled Russian invaders on three sides on Thursday after Moscow mounted an assault in Ukraine by land, sea, and air. It says in the biggest attack on the European state since World War II. So China said in a press release, they said, China is closely monitoring the latest situations. We call on all sides to exercise restraint to prevent the situation from getting out of control. China also said, quote, this is perhaps the difference between China and you Westerners. We won't go rushing to a conclusion. Dang, those are some fighting words right there from China. It says, regarding the definition of an invasion, I think we should go back to how to view the current situation in Ukraine. The Ukrainian issue has other very complicated historical background that has continued to today. It may not be what everyone wants to see. So that comes from China. And go figure, because they're getting ready for Taiwan is what they want. So of course they're not going to say it's an invasion, because who knows what the Chinese are planning.
The merge on 370 north or 270 north or whatever it is. Yeah. It doesn't matter how far you get over.
Yeah. To get them and have them coming in on their side.
Yep. Yeah.
But yeah, I haven't seen any listings that say there's even any indication of wavering. They said the short list.
We just lost her this weekend. She was 16. Yeah, towards the end. She was our I've got pictures of her. She's running. Still, I don't know how she's running. Hilarious. Yeah.
We haven't heard any.
She had a good life. She would pick on this. I got this. I'll show you. I've got this kind of American way. And she used to. Oh yeah. He avoided her like
What kind of a dog is it? Here, this was the Rapunzel.
Oh my God.
And here, this is so, it was down to my waist,
Oh,
but it was dry, so it was wet. It was
Long.
It was, yeah. But it's all.
It is.
Yeah, there it is. That's good.
Oh, he's a good one. I had a cat like that.
It was tennis balls, it's such a small cat.
He's 150 pounds. He put one paw here, and stare him in the face. And he's scared of scared of that little, and it's called an American Bully.
That's really what it's called?
Yeah, it's a mixture of
Or bulldog?
a bulldog, a mastiff, and an English bulldog. And it's that dog calls son dating this girl again. Her mother was in Alabama, had broken her mother, and bought 2 of these dogs for $13,000. $13,000. And she decided they were too big, so Zachary took one of them, and she was going to give this dog to a shelter. Yeah. So my son put him in the car and drove him up to the now he's gone. Everything. Except the cat. Oh yeah. She would, and I would scold them, and we had another little bitty black one. She was the excuse me, Jack Russell, and just died. And I would scold her, get off the couch. And then Littlefoot, the cat, would run in. She would hear me scolding the dog, and she would run into the room and slap the dog in the face. She did it all the time. She was, hey, quiet, get off the couch. And then Littlefoot would go, run in and go, bam.
She was your assistant.
Yeah,
Discipline.
she just loved to torture the dogs. But yeah, well, she had diabetes. Yeah, then towards the end, she had went in remission. I just told her. She was diagnosed 7 years ago, so we got 7 years ago. She wouldn't take it after a while, so we quit giving it to her because she was so tortured. And we thought, well, if she dies, she dies. But she got better. And so, yeah, and then she just, it came in suddenly overnight. That was a cat, I said, I mean, talk about 9 lives, she went through every single one of them. Saved her when she was about 1.5 years. I was coaching football, we found her under a sea container. She was scrawny and about half dead, so I brought her home. And then she got attacked by some dogs, almost died then. She ate poison. I mean, this cat went through everything. And survived it all. She was tough on the dogs. I mean, that 150-pound dog could just squash her or eat her.
She knew it was possible.
Yeah, she was, I mean, she put a scratch on his nose one day, and he was like, no, I'm not messing with her. Those little noodles she had to try. She was this big. She brought in a little pet in the garage. I don't even know how she put it in there. She brought in a squirrel that was like this big. And she would lay her kills out, like, you know how when you go fishing? You go fishing and they're all hanging up in a line. And so she would lay them flat, and she would walk out there in the garage and look at her, and then she would look at you and go like, this is how it's done. You need to understand how to do this. I'm teaching you. This is how you kill. And you lay them out so I can look at them. One day, it was and they came through, she was attacked, and so they found lots of rats after she died. And so and you know, if you see any rats, let's know it's not traps. And I go, don't have to. She goes, what do you mean? I go, come here. I walk towards the garbage can, I open it up, there were 2 dead rats in there. I go, how'd you do that? I go, I can't take responsibility for it, but I have a huntress over here. My cat's look. Yeah. Great cat.
My boy is 10, so
Oh. We had a fat red cat, or where the orange tabbies are. Yeah, we had one of those. Yeah. And he got really big.
Al, and the other one said, you know what? You could better. Okay.
I think partly it was so good because
34 minutes away. Anybody bets on the over-under? We should have, like we used to have in the trunk of the station, a pool, and the closest one was buying drinks.
it was COVID, during COVID, travel, so it's like people were watching that place like the pool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, you need to, yeah. Yeah.
Envision.
Yeah. Limp spaghetti with it. And they go.
Not when I finish.
They used to consider themselves the party of moral values, and now they're just like,
Values. I got you.
describe, define values.
Values. Did we win? That's the value.
That's the only, and what's the agenda?
I mean, they ran.
If you want it, we don't.
They ran in 2020. No. Fine.
They stand,
Yeah, I mean, what do you stand for?
they stand for.
Whatever you don't.
Democrats.
Yeah.
And they do it quite well.
Yeah. What are you gonna do if you govern? Well, we'll close everything. Well, but you be the one proposing it. Well, you know, but we'll blame it on the Democrats.
Still blaming Hillary. We're still blaming it on Hillary.
If I've seen them, I bet I've.
Well, we, right.
Hey, it's Peter.
Good, how are you?
How is this not? I mean, how can they just look at how are the Democrats just like, oh, well, yeah, you know.
I always get one of those problems with no part, the other is very no.
Yeah.
That's, I mean, just don't know how to look at it.
Oh, yeah, yeah. The Democrats are.
Tilly. Yeah. Republicans are playing chess with one team on the field. Checkmate.
No, you can't.
Is there? I don't know, let's argue about that. I don't know.
Questo non tiene conto, cavolo.
It's not.
Ai.
Castles are wrong. I don't know, I don't know, getting rough. But whatever you do, don't say queen. Okay?
Actually, you know what, I have one. But unless it's you will say, yeah, it's pretty awesome.
Oh, my goodness, I didn't like that.
You wanna try?
Sure.
Se non servivi da poco, poi non troccavo quella prima.
You know, I thought they said joining the military is all.
Yeah.
Okay.
Something like that.
So I think I was paying like $4 something, right?
So basically,
You know, not a whole lot of people are showing up for choir practice these days.
I don't have a car. Covered that.
I'm just saying, I'm a little upset.
We're just getting started.
No, these are days when you need a wet car in the back.
Well, you know, what, only these days?
Yeah.
Faça aí.
All right, folks. Sorry I've been off the microphone for a minute, but I was looking into a story that is pretty much breaking right now. So there's a scoop going out right now that says top senator warns Putin's cyber attacks could trigger a bigger war. Now, when I'm saying this is just, how should I put it, the beginning stages of how we're going to get boots on the ground in battling Russia, pretty much. So as you guys probably know, if you guys have been tuning in to our live streams in the last couple of days, you guys know that the Biden administration has been talking about cyber attacks, that there's going to be cyber attacks, that they're going to take down, you know, some companies here in the United States and all this stuff. So like I've been saying on microphone for over a week now, is that evil entities have to warn before they actually do their evil deeds. And they have been warning. They have been warning about cyber attacks. They have been warning that there's going to be cyber attacks going on in the U.S., all around the world, and all that stuff, and all coming from Russia. Russia is the one that's going to do these cyber attacks on the United States. Well, it says that a top senator overseeing the U.S. intelligence agencies tells Axios that he's deeply concerned about cyber attacks launched by Russian President Putin could morph into a broader war that draws in NATO nations, including the United States. So this is just a prelude to what's happening or what's going to happen in the near future. These cyber attacks is going to basically, is going to be the shot heard across the world. You know, that's what's going to bringing a new phase to pretty much World War III, a cyber attack. That is what's going to draw everybody in. That is what's going to start this huge mess that we are in right now. A cyber attack. So it says Biden has ruled out American boots on the ground in Ukraine, but Senate Intelligence Committee Chairman Mark Warner, Democrat of Virginia, said in an interview Wednesday that Putin's actions during the next few days risk triggering NATO's Article 5 collective defense principle. And that, like I said, that's what's going to happen. So stay tuned for that. We're going to be updating this scoop up on our website, goldenstatetimes.com. Again, that's www.goldenstatetimes.com. Biden said this morning that he's not going to put boots on the ground unless one of our NATO allies gets attacked. That is what triggers it. And what's going to be the beginning stages of it is a cyber attack. Now, who knows what country is the one that's going to get attacked first regarding cyber. But whichever country it is, if they are a NATO ally, that is when Biden's going to pretty much call it. So stay tuned for that.
daj mi znać, bo ja jestem w środku, jak będzie połączenie, to wyjdę na zewnątrz. Nie, ja wiszę, jak się zostaje teraz na... Dobra, okej.
All right, folks, so we're going to create a poll here on the chat. And make sure that you guys, if you guys can't see, I don't know if you can see it on your mobile devices when we do a poll. But let me know if you guys do see it. But just give me a second, and I'll put the poll up and see what you guys think.
How you doing? Tak, jestem, cześć. Dziękuję. Słyszałem Jacka też, słyszę.
All right, folks, so join our poll. Would World War III have happened under Trump?
Okay,
Sorry, I put UN. It's supposed to be under. Let me try to fix that real quick. Join our poll. If you can't see it on your mobile device, go on our computer, I guess. I don't know if you guys can see it. Can you guys see it on a mobile device when we do a poll? Let me know in the chat.
Do Europy kolejnych amerykańskich, które lecą. Możemy o tym Swiftie porozmawiać. A to już wczoraj było wiadomo. To już wczoraj się przeszło. No nie, tak, i pan dzisiaj powiedział, że nie ma, tak, nie ma zamiaru rozmawiać z takimi.
Well,
Ja nawet nie chcę w ogóle rozmawiać.
All right, so join our poll. We had to do it once again. So if you voted before, vote again. We had to put it down and then put it back up. So if you haven't, make sure you join our poll. Would have World War III happened under Trump? Let me know in the poll. And a lot of people are saying that you can see it on your mobile device. That's good. So join our poll. Would World War III have happened under Trump? Let me know what you guys think. If you guys already did it the first time, do it again, because we had to take the first one down. There was I spelled something wrong in the thing, so make sure you guys go and let us know what you guys think. Give us your opinion. Would World War III have happened under Trump?
How are you?
Oh, I'm surprised they opened it up to, what was
Give me any background. Fill me in on the
I can go upstairs.
What are these?
Hey, I don't know what's later, it's in the current conditions are the dry night and maybe some rain, maybe some heavy rain in the United States. If you notice, they said there's, you don't get out till around 18 here. Now, I don't know, new restriction, I don't know if they keep the lights on. I wonder if it is here or whether it's gas or just spot, one of the covered areas from someone else's. Now, they're supposed to be the review on 5:30 now or something.
To see where something parked, you gotta be.
Yep. I'm not sure that it's staying there.
All right, folks, we would like to give a big thank you to everyone that made their selection on our poll. And we said, would World War III have happened under Trump? Now, whether we're in World War III now or not, it does not matter. I'm just saying, would have happened under him? And a lot of people said no. We went through 4 years of peace under Trump. And if Trump would have been in office now, would we have gone through another 4 years of peace? That's pretty much the question. Not if we are in the middle of World War III right now, because we're not, obviously. But if this whole tension would have happened under Trump, how different would it have been? That is a real question. If you haven't yet, make sure you join our poll. 434 Patriots already been part of our poll. Come on, we can do better than that. If you haven't yet, make sure you answer our poll. Thank you so much.
You're in the Hamilton. 5, 16.
Someone in the chat said Trump called Putin a genius. Well, Trump calls everyone a genius. Whether he's saying it as a compliment or as an insult, he calls everybody a genius. It's just a matter of people not understanding his humor, or when he's insulting or when he's not. So it really doesn't matter if Trump called Putin a genius, because Trump called Kim Jong-un a genius too, but he meant it in an insulting way, not as a compliment. Rocket Man, if you guys can remember Rocket Man. Trump even called himself a genius. I don't know if you guys remember that.
It's weird. He has some obsessive compulsive things. Sometimes he uses the memory loss as an excuse, I feel. Because when you get to the topic that you want to talk about, he can zero and whatever. But if you get into something about his illness or his medication or any of that stuff, he can just throw at you the I don't understand Russian God or it's kind of weird. But in general, the numbers stabilized in the right place. But then they reduce the dose of medication a little bit. To see, because they don't want to give you the heaviest dose.
Right.
The numbers stick to but how do I describe?
Yeah, I gotta agree with that. Jen Psaki having a birthday party in the back, having a good time while Ukraine is burning is not a really good look for the Biden White House. But in reality, what is a good look for this White House? It's ridiculous every way you look at it. We have Peppermint Patty coming out here, the propaganda queen, lying through her teeth. We have Biden lying through his fake dentures. And that's just the way that this White House is.
That's just like my blood pressure. That's exactly. So we need to keep an eye on it. It's not a problem. We need to keep an eye on it.
But for him, any of that is because I mean I personally believe that struggles and understanding that he will never heal.
Yeah.
But also he's patient, so he's gonna have hope that he will heal. But the reality is this kind of illness, they can stabilize it and put it to sleep.
Yeah.
And then if it wakes up, they can have another consumption.
Yeah.
But at some point there's a period of time. It is what it is. But it's I think they have like Bill's brother had it. But Bill's brother was at a much younger age.
Right.
So they were able to do this T-cell therapy where they take all your blood out, they cycle it, they take something out of it, and they bring it back in. Then you're fine.
Yeah.
But once you're, I think, 60 and above, they won't do that.
Yeah.
That's for, first of all, they're expensive.
Yeah.
Second of all, they do it for people who they assume it's another 24 years. Instead of doing it for people who are 80.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's, and they're probably not doing it because it's high risk.
Oh yeah.
I don't know what the answer is, but I can say that it's complicated. You know, we remodeled the whole bathroom and made it a pool shower.
Very good question. Someone in the chat said, give me a second, let me go back to it. Let me go back up to it. So it says, how long before the power outages begin? I think that's what it said.
Or you can just put a plastic chair.
Let's see. Oh man, where is it? Something about how long before the power outages begin. That's a very good question. Now, would that be the first thing that the so-called cyber attack is going to happen? The power grid? Very good question. Will that be the first thing to be attacked here in the U.S., the power grid?
day travel cycle.
It could happen. You never know. Just keep that in mind for the next couple weeks.
Missing an appointment per se because or because he's not in here, and it becomes more of a, aren't you responsible for this person getting to their appointment? And why are you neglect?
If you have a home and you invested in solar power, pat yourself in the back because it's going to come in handy once these blackouts begin.
Literally next month, we have mom arrives tomorrow night. Monday,
Does she spend most of the time here or there? Or
There.
split?
it's yeah.
Yeah.
So she just went there for 2 months, and now she's gonna be there for 6 months. So then I'm splitting him with my sister. So she's in Cambridge, Maryland. So she's basically about 16 miles over. Arrives Friday night. He comes over to our house Saturday. Monday we have to take him for his pre-op for his eye here. Wednesday we have to do the eye cataract surgery. And then less than a week there he has to go to his
Yeah. Where did you do that? Where did you do that?
He told us
All the time?
we decided to take it.
Everything's there.
It's annoying to do the drive,
Yeah.
but it's all but one place that you can do
Yeah,
everything.
yeah.
And then literally after that we had to go to they found something here, they took it out and it turned out to be cancerous. So they
Inside or outside?
outside, so they want to just like basically dig a little bit more, take it all off. And I'm like, listen guys, we're gonna have to push this because it was gonna be in the middle of all three things. I'm not gonna take a guy who just had cataract and his eyes are blocked. So they're gonna go right over. We'll watch it. It's not true.
Yeah, yeah,
So I pushed that till the end of March.
yeah.
And I figured that now we'll be here and we'll be spending more time with my sister.
Yeah.
So we'll handle the appointments and the surgeries and that's
For recovery.
He'll be there with my mom and sister.
Let's go.
You know, it's the same thing as a pharmacy. You feel the breath for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
How's it now? I feel the breeze.
You gonna drive it down?
You gotta figure out a way.
Yeah.
That's the plan. I see the stenographer, she's coming out. Who knows, we might have her.
All right, folks, thank you so much to everyone that was part of our poll. We're going to end the poll now. 630 votes, all for no, pretty much. 80% no, 10% maybe, 10% yes. The question was, would World War III have happened under Trump? The vast majority of patriots said no. And I agree with that. Because the guy wanted peace. And we got 4 years of peace. There was no tension. Little Rocket Man wasn't shooting up his rockets. And we got some terrorists at the same time, so...
Siri has her own. Hey Siri, turn off the flash. Hey Siri, turn off the flashlight.
I turned flashlight off.
Thank you.
I'm sure everybody's got red.
Yeah, we're going. Yeah, tomorrow morning. 9:30.
When I was in Haiti, I got the earthquake that still.
And so if well, that's what I'm gonna say. So you guys remember like
Remember the flash, you can go for it? No, for Sean Penn being.
I'm looking. I should look up the
California favorite.
All right, folks, so if you haven't yet, please share the live stream. It's set to begin in, I think it's a 2-minute warning now. Make sure you guys please share the live stream on social media. Click the thumbs up button as we get ready for the White House press briefing. The queen of the propaganda, the queen of propaganda is said to come out very soon.
We're sitting there, we're sitting like at the kitchen table, like, maybe they have the wrong buttons. What's the white button?
That would definitely give me more energy. Okay, what's the front row?
Seat warmers.
That
used to be a sign. Briefing in Harvard.
This is a good sign. This is a good sign.
So far.
Mr. Holland, you're the only member of the front row there.
Okay, let's go.
Very, very neat. I'm leaving right away. Oh, earlier? Yeah. Take what I can get. Car's not high. A little acknowledgement every now and again. Well, yeah. You gotta take that. You gotta take it. You gotta do it. Somebody else is.
2-minute warning to briefing. 2-minute warning to briefing. Thank you.
You got a Bueller and
All right, folks, finally, 2-minute warning. Like I said, 2-minute warning. Please share the live stream on social media. Don't forget to click the thumbs up button. It helps us out immensely. And here we go.
Yeah, you want to get that?
I called on it.
I know, that's how powerful he is. That's how powerful he is. He's not even there. What are the socks today? What do we got?
Yeah, you want to get that?
What's up,
Yep. I'm gonna go with a 50 this time. Okay. Cut it a little. I like it. Time.
Did you back out this way?
That way.
Right at the top of the six. And then boom. And luckily we got enough sound from earlier for a package. Usually when the 40,000 days yeah. I know. That's exactly what people said. That's literally exactly.
All I knew is it would be.
Do you think there's going to be a SCOTUS announcement?
ABJ is walking out.
Honestly, I would just cry silent little tears right here.
I just can't handle that today.
And take questions.
Wait. Hi, everyone.
Hello.
Okay, back by popular demand. If he decides he's not going to be an economic expert anymore, he might have a future in our business, or in the press office. So Dilip is back. He's going to give some brief comments at the top, take a few questions, then we'll do some briefing after then, and I'll just say at the top for anyone who needs to leave for TV, feel free to go. It's all fine. I will turn it over to Dilip now.
Thank you, Jen. Good to see all of you again, but this is a briefing I never wanted to give. I'd like to start by saying the prayers of the entire world are with the people of Ukraine today as they suffer an unjustified, unprovoked, and premeditated attack by the Russian military forces. President Biden has said from the start of this crisis, if Putin chooses to invade, the cost to Russia will be immediate and profound, to its financial system, to its economy, to its technology base, and to its strategic position in the world. As the world has now witnessed, Putin has made his choice. He rejected diplomacy and chose war. And today, the president has announced our response. Because of Putin's choices, his flagrant violation of international law, and his utter disregard for the principles that underpin peace and security across the world, we will now ensure his decision is remembered as a strategic failure. Today, we impose an unprecedented package of financial sanctions and export restrictions in lockstep with our allies and partners that will isolate Russia from the global financial system, shut down its access to cutting-edge technology, and undercut Putin's strategic ambitions to diversify and modernize his economy. Let me walk you through a few specifics, and I'll be happy to take questions. On financial sanctions, I stood at this podium on Tuesday and said, we would impose the most severe sanctions ever levied on Russia if Putin proceeded with the invasion. Today, we're following through. We will impose sanctions on Russia's two largest financial institutions, Sberbank and VTB, which together hold more than half of the Russian banking system's assets, over $750 billion in total. For VTB, we will freeze all of its assets touching the U.S. financial system and prohibit U.S. persons from doing any business with the bank. For Sberbank, we will sever its access to the U.S. financial system. We'll also freeze the assets of and prohibit any business dealings with 3 additional Russian banks with combined assets of over $70 billion. We'll also restrict U.S. investors from providing debt or equity financing for 13 of the most critical Russian state-owned enterprises, which combined have estimated assets nearing $1.5 trillion. And finally, we'll also impose sanctions on the executives at these state-owned institutions, as well as additional Russian elites who are complicit in Putin's kleptocracy, and their family members. Those who've shared in the Kremlin's corrupt gains and stored their wealth in yachts and luxury condos and fancy cars will now share in the pain of these measures. In terms of the financial impact, as I said, these are the most impactful and significant sanctions the U.S. has ever taken. But financial sanctions are just one part of our response. We're also unveiling today an expansive and unprecedented set of export restrictions developed in historically close coordination with the European Union, Australia, Japan, Canada, New Zealand, the United Kingdom, and Taiwan. These new measures include sweeping restrictions on Russian military end users to impair Putin's military capabilities, and will also deny exports across Russia to sensitive cutting-edge technology, primarily targeting Russia's defense, aerospace, and maritime sectors. In total, the United States and our partners will effectively be cutting off more than half of all high-tech imports going into Russia. This includes curbing Russia's access to advanced semiconductors and other foundational technologies that Russia needs to diversify and modernize its economy. Working in tandem, these financial sanctions and the export controls will undercut Putin's aspirations to project power on the world stage. And those impacts intensified dramatically just today. The Russian stock market plunged over 30% at one point before being halted by local regulators. Russia's currency, the ruble, weakened to its weakest value on record against the dollar before the central bank intervened. And the price the market is charging the Russian government to borrow is now above 15%. These impacts over time will translate into higher inflation, higher interest rates, lower purchasing power, lower investment, lower productive capacity, lower growth, and lower living standards in Russia. To be clear, this is not the outcome we wanted. It's both a tragedy for the people of Ukraine and a very raw deal for the Russian people. But Putin's war of choice has required that we do what we said, and to ensure this will be a strategic failure. Finally, let me just say a few words about the impact of Russia's choices on the U.S. We've intentionally scoped our sanctions to deliver severe impact on the Russian economy while minimizing the cost to the U.S. as well as our allies and partners. To be clear, our sanctions are not designed to cause any disruption to the current flow of energy from Russia to the world. We've carved out energy payments on a time-bound basis to allow for an orderly transition of these flows away from sanctioned institutions, and we provided other licenses to provide for an orderly wind down of business. Let me just stop there and take your questions.
I just had a real quick question. You said it would take some time before it affects the economy and inflation. What's the timetable? How long do you think it will take until you have demonstrable results?
Well, look, these are costs that build over time. And as I mentioned, I think last Friday, any leader, whether you're an autocrat or a small d Democrat, has to pay attention to the living standards of your country. And already we're seeing the effects of these measures and the signaling that we provided over the last 3 months. Before these sanctions were implemented, inflation in Russia was 8.7%. The government's borrowing costs had spiked above 10%. The ruble had lost almost 15% of its value. And today, those costs escalated dramatically. Now, it's going to be up to President Putin to decide, ultimately, how much cost he's willing to bear. But what we control is to make sure this will be a strategic failure, not just because of the sanctions, but also because of the export controls, because of Europe's accelerated diversification away from Russia in terms of its energy supply, due to our fortification of NATO's eastern flank, and due to the renewed energy and unity and determination by the West to stand up for our values and advance our principles.
But to confirm, you're in it for the long haul, right? You're until you see the results that you want.
We understand that these costs will accumulate over time.
Minimum.
Thank you.
you've just laid out all of the actions that the U.S. that our allies have taken at this point. As you understand, the questions, though, at this point are about the actions you have not yet chosen to take at this point, specifically the SWIFT system and sanctioning President Putin specifically himself. What are the triggers at this point? Are there actions that President Putin might still take you're expecting that would trigger those sanctions? Or what are the potential complications, especially about sanctioning Putin personally?
So I understand a lot of questions about SWIFT and about sanctioning President Putin and lots of other measures that could be mentioned. But let me say this. I think today was a demonstration that we mean what we say. We delivered on what we said we would do in terms of imposing costs. So when we say all options are on the table and that we're prepared to continue to ratchet costs higher, it would be a mistake to doubt that resolve. But let me also step back and say that when we consider which sanctions to apply, we're not cowboys and cowgirls pressing a button to impose costs. We follow a set of principles. We want the sanctions to be impactful enough to demonstrate our resolve and to show that we have the capacity to deliver overwhelming costs to Russia. That's one. Number two, we want them to be responsible, to avoid even the perception of targeting the average Russian civilian, and of course, unwanted spillovers back to the US or the global economy. Number three, we want to stay coordinated. And so we calibrate our sanctions to maximize the chance that we move in lockstep with our allies and partners. Number four, they should be flexible so that we can escalate or de-escalate depending on facts on the ground. And lastly, as I mentioned before, they have to be sustainable. These sanctions work over the long term. That's what will guide our design.
In light of the sanctions that were announced against individuals and entities in Belarus, can you tell us whether there are sanctions against any other countries that are being seriously considered at the moment? And what is the line that a nation would need to cross in this conflict for them to be on the receiving end of sanctions from the U.S.?
Well, the Belarus measures were about delivering cost to a country that aided and abetted what we saw yesterday and overnight. But I have nothing else for you in terms of other countries being targeted.
JJ. Oh, did you have a question?
Oh, yeah, definitely. I know I didn't mean, I was confusing the arms here. You want to go in the middle?
Thank you, Delete.
We'll come back to you.
I wanted to ask you about some of the carve-outs. There are general licenses for more than a dozen areas, agriculture, energy, and you just said that the importance is to limit the impact on Americans. But I was hoping that you could say, is there a percentage that you can share of the number of exemptions that make up the overall transactions? So the general licenses, what percentage of the transactions are under those licenses?
I would refer you to Treasury and OFAC for the details on what exactly is being exempted and the percentage of business that would be included.
I mean, could you say, is it a third? Is it a half? I mean, is it a small percentage? Is it a high percentage?
I would go back to the principles of our design. The measures themselves and the exemptions are balanced so that we can deliver overwhelming costs while not having unintended consequences. And so that's the principle. But as to the specifics, I'd refer you to Treasury.
Wouldn't the oil be a large percentage? I mean, considering how important it is to Russia's bottom line?
Well, look, where we have an asymmetric advantage is in foreign capital and cutting-edge technology. So that's where we're delivering the most concentrated impact. When it comes to energy, this is the one area where Russia has systemic importance in the global economy. We know it's the second largest natural gas producer in the world. It's also the second largest crude oil producer in the world. That's not to say that we have a dependence on Russia. Russia depends on those revenues just as much as the world needs its energy. But we're not going to do anything which causes an unintended disruption to the flow of energy as the global economic recovery is still underway.
Thanks. Two quick questions, actually. One, if Putin takes Kyiv, does that trigger additional sanctions, specifically that scenario?
Not going to speculate on particular hypotheticals.
And you mentioned the timeline. You've been asked about the timeline. The president said in one of the answers to his questions today, he said, let's have a conversation in a month to see if these sanctions are working. But my question is, what happens in the meantime? Russia is taking over parts of Ukraine, major parts of Ukraine, as we speak. So the world just sits back and watches that happen until these sanctions take effect.
Look, we can't dictate Putin's actions. What we can do is what's within our control, and to make sure this is going to be a strategic failure for Russia. And so over the course of the next month, what you can expect is that we'll see an intensifying negative feedback loop in Russian markets. And I've described the elements of that. You'll see record capital outflows. You'll see a weaker currency. You'll see higher inflation. You'll see lower purchasing power. You'll see lower investment. And that negative feedback loop, the velocity of it, is going to be determined by Putin's own actions. And so that's what you should expect on the financial sanctions front. On export controls, what you can see is that over time, this is going to atrophy Russia's capacity to diversify outside of just oil and gas and to modernize the strategic sectors that Putin himself has said he wants to develop: aerospace, defense, IT, lasers, sensors. These sectors all depend on foundational technologies designed and produced by the West. You will begin to see a chilling effect take hold in Russia as those inputs are denied.
Thank you. For weeks now, administration officials have repeatedly said, yourself included, that these sanctions are meant to deter and prevent Putin from moving forward, from acting. Can you help us understand why the president said today that no one expected the sanctions to prevent anything from happening? And then secondly, on a quick one on Putin sanctions, without talking about when you might trigger them, can you help us understand what harm they would do to him personally if you were to sanction Putin?
Look, on your first question, we don't usually engage in hypotheticals up here at this podium, but let's play this out. Had we unleashed our entire package of financial sanctions preemptively, I think a couple of things might have happened. Number one, President Putin might have said, look, these people are not serious about diplomacy. They're not engaging in a good faith effort to promote peace. Instead, they're escalating. And that could provide a justification for him to escalate and invade. Secondly, he could look at it as a sunk cost. In other words, President Putin could think, I've already paid the price. Why don't I actually take what I paid for, which is Ukraine's freedom? So that's what we wanted to avoid. Look, ultimately, the goal of our sanctions is to make this a strategic failure for Russia. And let's define a little bit what that means. Strategic success in the 21st century is not about a physical land grab of territory. That's what Putin has done. In this century, strategic power is increasingly measured and exercised by economic strength, by technological sophistication, and your story, who you are, what your values are. Can you attract ideas and talent and goodwill? And on each of those measures, this will be a failure for Russia.
I keep asking you these same questions. I don't think
she's not done yet. Let me just finish. Go ahead.
On President Putin.
But is it fair to say no one expected the sanctions to prevent anything? You certainly expected that, right?
Look, we signaled as clearly as we could what was coming if Russia proceeded with an invasion. As I mentioned before, economic costs of this severity generally matter to any leader. Because of the effect it has on his people's living standards. In this case, Putin made the wrong choice.
JJ's asking a question. Go ahead,
One more on SWIFT, please.
Don't really
affect the UK has been pressuring allies to still reject Russia from the SWIFT system. Can you say if the US is still intensely working to pressure allies to do the same? How intensely are you guys pursuing
I can't comment on what the UK's position is. I'm not going to speak to that. But what I'll say is the sanctions measures we imposed today, I think without question, were the most consequential ever levied on Russia and arguably the most consequential ever levied in history, if you look at the aggregate financial impact on Russia. So that's why we took the measures that we did. And we did so because we could move in lockstep with our allies and partners, and because we think the spillover effects will be manageable.
I'm trying to figure out if this is still a realistic live round. Is the U.S. really still making an intense effort for this, or is it essentially...
This being SWIFT?
Right.
Well, look, again, I'm just going to repeat. All options are on the table, and we're prepared to ratchet costs higher at a time and place of our choosing. And, President Putin should take that seriously after what he saw today.
Michael?
How do you ensure that these sanctions don't really affect people?
Let Michael ask his question. Go ahead, Michael.
Same question.
Just two questions. First, if you were to sanction Vladimir Putin, do you know where his money is?
Not going to comment on that.
And secondly, what is the message to Russia at this point on what it would take to roll back relieve some of the sanctions that you put in place today?
Look, the road to diplomacy is always open. Diplomacy is never dead. But in the current circumstance, in the immediate aftermath of an invasion, that option is not available. Right now, we're imposing severe consequences on Russia for its decisions. If there were to be a shift in Russia's strategic choices that upheld core principles of respecting your neighbor's borders, respecting your neighbor's sovereignty, allowing countries to have the freedom to set their own course and their own destiny, that would be a different situation, but that's not where we are.
Tyler?
You suggested that there's things that still remain on the table, but as you walked through the hypothetical scenarios of trying to keep diplomacy open, you said that they have now crossed the line. But if you're saying there's still more on the table, do you expect things to get worse in the coming days, that Russia will continue to move forward? Is that the intelligence? I know you guys have been quite transparent about the intelligence you have. Are you keeping things back because you think the situation is going to get worse?
I think we've been transparent in to a remarkable degree. One aspect of that transparency is by saying we can't get into President Putin's head. And so your question requires me to speculate on how he's thinking about next steps, and I simply can't do that.
But just in terms of U.S. intelligence and the way that you are planning out the different sanctions you have and keeping things on the table, is that a sense that it will get worse because you want to hold things back?
Look, our job is to be prepared and manage risks, all manner of risks. And that's what we've been doing over the past 3 months as this crisis intensified. We'll continue doing that.
Last one from Steve. Go
These
ahead.
sanctions
Just to follow
don't
up,
affect
follow up
ordinary
from
people in
Franco.
Russia.
The targeting the Russian energy industry is totally off the table. Is that what you're saying, Khalid?
What I'm saying is that our measures were not designed to disrupt in any way the current flow of energy from Russia to the world. Now, we have also said we are going to cut off Russia's access to cutting-edge technology. That technology can be used across many sectors. And so as it relates to Russia's long-term productive capacity, we are seeking to degrade that capacity, but nothing in the short term as it relates to energy.
Thank you so much. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Jeff.
Appreciate it. Okay, I know it's late, but we will get to as many people as possible. I just wanted to note a couple of things at the top for all of you. One, USAID put out an announcement that they've deployed a DART, or Disaster Assistance Response Team, to respond to humanitarian needs in Ukraine. This DART team, which is currently based in Poland, is working closely with European allies and partners who will be on the front lines of the response. The team will lead the U.S. government's humanitarian response to help address critical needs caused by Russia's invasion of Ukraine. The DART comprises 17 disaster experts from USAID who are assessing the situation, identifying priority needs to scale up assistance inside Ukraine, and working with partners to provide rapidly needed assistance to communities affected by the conflict. I know a number of you have also asked me, and we've tried to provide as much detail as possible about how the president has spent his time over the last period since last evening. I think we put out a few details, but just to reiterate for all of you, he closely monitored the events on the ground from both the Oval Office and then back in the residence over the course of last evening. We put out a few details last night, including the fact that he spoke repeatedly with his national security advisor, Jake Sullivan. He also spoke with his U.S. UN ambassador, Linda Thomas-Greenfield, before she gave that powerful speech at the UN last night. He received a briefing from Secretary Austin, Chairman Milley, Secretary Blinken, and his national security advisor around 11 p.m. approximately last evening as well. And as you know, he also spoke with President Zelenskyy. He continued to monitor closely into the wee hours last night. This morning, as you all know, he met for just about an hour with his national security team, which included both a full table in the room and full members from the cabinet, from the national security team on the screen. During that meeting, as is standard, he received an update from, of course, Defense, Intel, his diplomatic team about the status on the ground, and he has, of course, remained closely engaged with them through the course of the day. As you know, he also had a G7 meeting that lasted a couple of hours this morning, and he also spent an hour this afternoon on the phone with the leaders in Congress, Democratic and Republican leaders in Congress, course, briefing them on the situation on a secure call, briefing them on the situation on the ground, answering questions they had as well. So that has been his day to date, and he is continuing, of course, to focus on other priorities as president. But why don't we go to you, Zeke?
Thanks, Jen. Just picking up on that, has the president made any additional foreign leader calls today? Has he spoken to President Zelenskyy since their call last evening?
There's not been another call to President Zelenskyy. I expect, as you have seen over the past several days, he will continue to have calls with leaders. We will keep you abreast as those happen.
And with the U.S. government saying that it believes that the Russian objective right now is to, quote, decapitate the Ukrainian government, does the U.S. believe that President Zelenskyy at this moment is safe?
We're not going to get into security questions, but we are in touch with President Zelenskyy, and we are working to provide him a range of support.
And President Zelenskyy, in addition to calling for the West to cut Russia off from SWIFT, also proposed or called for, demanded, I think was the word he used in a tweet, that the U.S. And its allies impose a no-fly zone over Ukraine. I know the president has said that he won't put U.S. boots on the ground in Ukraine to fight Russia. Is Ukrainian airspace in play? Is that something that is subject to any discussions?
We've certainly seen his tweet or his request via tweet, but I don't have an update on that request.
That's not off the table. The no-fly zone is not off the table.
Again, I don't have any update on this point in time or status of the discussions. Go ahead.
Thanks. Just a follow-up on troops fast and a few cyber questions. Sure. Do you expect NATO to call up a major response force, and how many U.S. troops could be called to help in that effort?
That's really up to NATO. As you know, we have a number of troops, thousands of troops that are on call, but that is a decision to made by the NATO alliance.
And the president said, if Putin pursues cyber attacks against our companies, our critical infrastructure, we are prepared to respond. So just clarifying, does that first mean that there has not been any evidence of any cyber attack from Russia against any American companies at this point?
Not that we have identified or attributed at this point in time.
And can you explain?
Aside from past ones that you're fully tracking.
Yeah, I guess in the last 24 hours.
I understand.
And can you explain more of the White House's thinking on kind of this debate in Washington about whether a cyber attack against a NATO ally would trigger an Article 5 response, a response from the alliance?
Well, that again is up to the NATO alliance to determine, but obviously a cyber attack does constitute an attack, so that would certainly be a point of discussion among the NATO members.
Okay, one more really fast. On the USAID disaster response you just mentioned, a 17-person team. Is that enough? I mean, we're talking about, we've heard you guys talk about the potential of hundreds of thousands of refugees.
You're absolutely right, and I think that's an important point. But what we're trying to do here is provide any incremental update on the status of what our work is. And I'll just note, and you may be fully aware of this, but in terms of humanitarian assistance, we have been the biggest provider of humanitarian assistance to Ukraine. We've provided over $52 million in humanitarian assistance to Ukraine in the past year. Over the past few weeks, we've committed additional funding and supplies to humanitarian organizations. There's been a specific need and therefore a focus on support services, food, clean water, hygiene, shelter, trauma, primary health care, and we're prepared to certainly provide a significant amount more. So this is just one step, obviously less than 24 hours after the events of last night, and we will continue to plus up from here. Go ahead.
Jen, there are a number of protests within Russia itself. Are you monitoring this? What's your message to them?
Well, there certainly are, and I know with everything going on, this may not have caught everybody's attention, but let me just note that, today we're seeing Russian people in the streets, open letters from leading Russian journalists and cultural figures denouncing President Putin's war of choice, and reports of Russian mothers concerned about the reckless deployment of their sons to this fratricidal war. I think it's important to remember back in 2014 when they didn't even acknowledge that they were sending Russian soldiers. They didn't even acknowledge when there were body bags coming back from Ukraine into Russia. And there is an outcry in the streets by Russian people, by more Russian people than I think many would expect. So despite Putin's crackdown at home, dissenting views remain. And I think that's important to note. To publicly protest against President Putin and his war is a deeply courageous act. Their actions show the world that despite the Kremlin's propaganda, there are Russian people who profoundly disagree with what he is doing in Ukraine.
One more. Speaker Pelosi's talking about sending $600 million in lethal aid to Ukraine. Is this something you support?
We are in conversations with Congress, and I mentioned the President spoke with leaders just earlier this afternoon. I don't have an exact number, but those are ongoing conversations about what needs the Ukrainians have on the ground in a variety of categories: security, humanitarian, other economic assistance. Go ahead.
Does the U.S. have any analysis to indicate that there is dissent or division within Putin's government, or is it your understanding that Putin's government is united in this war?
It's an interesting question, and Jamie, without getting into intelligence, which obviously we look at, I mentioned obviously Russians protesting in the streets. That's not exactly what you asked about, but if you watched the meeting the President Putin had with members of his national security team the other day, it was quite striking, the back and forth he had with his intel chief in that meeting. The analysis of that certainly can be done in an open source manner, given it was quite public, but I will leave outside analysis to give further assessment of that.
And as you know, we are seeing Ukrainians start to flee the country.
Yeah.
Is the U.S. prepared to accept Ukrainian refugees?
We are, but we certainly expect that most, if not the majority, will want to go to Europe in neighboring countries. So we are also working with European countries on what the needs are, where there is capacity. Poland, for example, where we are seeing an increasing flow of refugees over the last 24 hours, or flow of individuals, I should say, out of Ukraine, what their needs are, and we've been talking and engaging with Europeans about that for some time now.
Well, part of what you're doing is to prepare for the United States to accept.
The President is certainly prepared for that, but I would just note that because there are a number of European countries neighboring Ukraine who have expressed an openness to it, we would anticipate many of them would want to go to European countries.
And just one more quick question. The President, of course, has repeatedly said that American troops will not enter Ukraine.
Yeah.
Is there any scenario that has been discussed where that decision might be reconsidered?
The President has no intention of sending U.S. troops to fight in Ukraine. That has not changed. Go ahead.
This was asked of the President earlier, but I don't think we got a full answer. Yesterday, Vladimir Putin said that he warned if others got involved of such consequences that you have never encountered in your history. Does the U.S. understand that as a threat of using nuclear weapons?
Well, we can't obviously get into the mind of President Putin as much as he said that, nor do we know all the specific details about his strategic posture, but we don't see any increased threat in that regard at this point in time. Go ahead.
Just to follow up on some of the cyber questions.
Sure.
I know that you and others have talked about how the government is on alert for the potential of a cyber attack, but can you share, are there any specific steps that are being taken that you can share that the U.S. is doing to protect the infrastructure, power grid, U.S. banks?
Well, I would say, one, there's been efforts that have been ongoing for some time, since the beginning of the administration, to harden the private sector, or work with the private sector in partnership to harden their cybersecurity protections. We've actually seen a great deal of progress made in the financial sector. It's one of the stronger sectors in terms of protections from a cyber front that we see out there. So it's been ongoing for several months. Obviously, when there are moments like this where we continue to watch and look for what the potential is, we continue to engage closely with a range of industries about what they need to do, about the potential threats, and that's something that happens obviously privately and through a range of agencies. I can see if there's anything more specific that we can read out to all of you.
Just real quick, one follow-up. President Biden said that the U.S. is prepared if an attack comes there. He said prepared to respond. Would that response be a
cyber attack?
A cyber attack, yes. Would that be an equivalent cyber attack against Russia?
Well, I would say that the President reserves the option to respond in any manner of his choosing, overt or covert, seen or unseen, as we like to say in more available English, but I'm not going to get into specifics of what that looks like. He has a range of options. Go ahead.
Thanks. On oil prices and the SPR, does the administration have an oil price in mind that would trigger another release from the SPR?
I think not that we're going to get into detail or from here, JJ. I understand certainly the question. What you heard the president talk about today, and I can just reiterate a little bit, is that what has been ongoing, both from the president, who's been very engaged in this, having conversations with leaders in the Middle East and other parts of the world, as well as many members of his national security team, taking whatever steps we can to mitigate the impact on the global oil markets. And obviously that means increasing supply. Obviously a coordinated release from the Strategic Petroleum Reserve would be part of that. But in terms of what that looks like or the specifics, I'm just not in a position to get into more details at this point.
Thanks. If the worst happens and Russia either reduces the flow of natural gas or cuts off energy altogether to Europe, does the administration have a good idea for how long households in Europe could last under that kind of circumstance?
I don't have an assessment of that from here. I can certainly check with our economic team. One thing I will say that one of the steps we've been taking, obviously natural gas shortages and supply is an enormous regional issue, one that would hugely impact Europe more than here, of course. One of the steps we've been focused on and been taking is engaging with partners who may have excess LNG supply, like countries in Europe, Japan, for example, where we were planning to give them some, and now they're going to divert it to Europe. So we've been working to help mitigate any impact of a further invasion and a shortage in Europe. Go ahead.
Some of the activity that we've seen today in Ukraine, some of the clashes have been in and around Chernobyl. Does the United States have an assessment of the risk of a radioactive release?
So I do have one actual update on that as well. There's also been, there was also a report out, so let me speak to this first just so I don't forget, about hostages around there as well. So let me speak to that first. We are outraged by credible reports that Russian soldiers are currently holding the staff of the Chernobyl facilities hostage. This unlawful and dangerous hostage taking, which could upend the routine civil service efforts required to maintain and protect the nuclear waste facilities, is obviously incredibly alarming and greatly concerning. We condemn it and we request their release. In terms of a further assessment, I don't have anything more on that from here.
You gave a readout of how the president spent the past 24 hours or so. First, I wanted to ask about his call with President Zelenskyy. Did he indicate if he was still in Kyiv? Did he identify his location at this point?
We are aware of where he is located, and we are in touch with him. I would say on that call, what they discussed is President Zelenskyy's request for the president to condemn the actions of President Putin and the Russians and to engage with other global leaders about it, and that's exactly what he's done.
We've seen a number of statements today from former presidents, President Obama, President Bush, and also saw former President Trump on television talking about this. Has the president, you mentioned during the Afghanistan drone down, he had been in contact with his predecessors. Has he been in touch with any of his predecessors during this?
He has not been today.
And then in terms of another domestic priority that was potentially included in his meetings today, given the situation, his time and focus and attention on the Supreme Court, on Ukraine, will this affect the timing of his Supreme Court announcement at this point?
We are still on track to make an announcement before the end of the month. We have to do a lot of things around here at the same time. Go ahead.
Just to follow up on the cyber attacks and Article 5 question, I know you said that it's up to NATO to decide, but from a U.S. perspective, would any cyber attack against a NATO ally trigger Article 5, or would there be a measure for what counts?
Again, this is a conversation we would have with our NATO allies and partners. I don't have anything in addition to add to it.
And just to follow up on the Supreme Court, I know you said you're on track, but has he made a final decision given there are basically 2 days left for the end of the month?
Not a final, and no job offer has been made. Go ahead.
Thanks. Just a couple. Are there any concerns or indications at this point that Russia had prepared for the sanctions that you're putting in place and kind of developed preemptively ways to blunt that impact?
Well, it's an interesting question, and some of it is hard because it's hard to get into the minds of President Putin and the oligarchs around him. One of the steps we tried to take is to, as we were contemplating the individuals we were going to sanction, we sanctioned family members as well, because what we've seen the tactics they've used in the past is they've moved money around and resources around to family members, and we tried to address that on the front end. In terms of the banking and the financial sector, I mean, it accounts for such a a large percentage of how they do business, it would be a difficult thing for them to plan and plot against. And if you look to just even the anticipation of the potential sanctions, as Dilip was mentioning, the ruble is the worst performing currency in the world right now. Their inflation has skyrocketed. So we're even seeing in their markets the anticipated impact even before today, and that's even before the actual squeeze on the financial sector in the country. So it feels to me it would be a little hard to plan around and plot around given the significance of what was done today and the fact that when sanctioning 10 of Russia's financial institutions and these export control measures, which essentially cuts President Putin off from semiconductors and access to a range of technology he wants for the future. Those are difficult things to plan ahead for.
And then I guess secondly, does the administration have any assessment for how China is reacting to this at this point? Whether they are willing to provide support to Russia, how much, and has there been any kind of contact there to kind of attempt to move them off of any support?
Well, in terms of what impact they can have, I mean, China only accounts for about 15% of China and Russia. I'm not sure. You can double check me on this. About 15% of the global economy. If you look at G7 partners in the U.S. and Europe, it's about 50%, right? So they cannot cover what the impact of the sanctions that have been announced in coordination with Europe, how they would impact Russia. I think from our perspective as it relates to China, well, I can't get into the heads of what their thinking is. This is a moment for China, for any country, to think about what side of history they want to stand on here. And that is certainly the case that we would make publicly and privately. I think you saw that Secretary Blinken spoke with his counterpart just a couple of days ago. The president's certainly open to speaking with his counterpart, but I don't have any prediction of that at this point in time or a timeline. Go ahead.
Thanks, Jen. Over the past couple of weeks, as you've been sounding the alarm on this, you've put the sanctions package together, conducted diplomacy with the Russians and the rest of the world. How did the Ukrainian government use that time, since they've been initially warned that this was a likelihood? Did they use that time wisely to prepare?
Tell me more about what you mean exactly.
Well, you're seeing reports from the streets in Russia, in Ukraine, of people being surprised. You had, obviously, local and national leadership in Ukraine telling people to stay calm, to go to work, even the day before the invasion began. So were they properly prepared, and was there more that they could have done in the lead-up?
Look, I think it's not particularly constructive for us to give an assessment of that. What I can tell you is that our focus has been on providing up-to-date, what has turned out to be quite accurate and transparent information about what the President Putin was preparing to do, which was invade Ukraine. And we have been very clear with American citizens who are there. We have been clear with our European partners 4 months now, including Ukrainian leadership. So that has been what our focus has been. And we will remain a strong supporter and partner of President Zelenskyy in Ukraine moving forward. Go ahead.
Thanks, Chad. Following up on the sanction question.
Yeah.
We have heard for weeks that these sanctions were, at least in part, a part of a strategy that was based on deterrence as well as prevention. Today, with the president's comment that no one expected the sanctions to prevent anything from happening, moving forward, do you expect this slate of sanctions to prevent any further advancement or aggression from Russia?
Well, I would say that later in the back and forth or the press avail, he also said when asked if sanctions cannot stop President Putin, what penalty can? And he said, I didn't say sanctions couldn't stop him, which leads me to believe that's not exactly what he meant. He also went on to say the threat of sanctions and imposing the sanctions and seeing the effect of sanctions are two different things. And the way we look at this, broadly speaking, and Dilip touched on this a little bit, is that we do see them as having a deterrent impact, right? It doesn't mean they're 100% foolproof. But if there's a 95% chance of Russia invading without the threat of sanctions, and there's a 60, I'm making up these percentages just to make a point, but and a 65% chance that they will with them, you're obviously going to go with the threat of sanctions because you want to reduce the threat of an invasion. So there is a deterrent, and we've seen the deterrent impact work at times, right? I'd also note that we are very clear-eyed about the fact that President Putin, not just a few days ago, I mean, he gave the speech a few days ago where he questioned the legitimacy of Ukraine as a sovereign country. He's also talked about how the breakup of the Soviet Union was the worst thing that's happened, that's a paraphrase, in recent, in decades of history. So we are clear-eyed about his ambition, but what the other part of it that we are quite focused on is the consequences. And the way we see it is, as we've touched on a little bit, inflation skyrocketing, the ruble is the worst performing currency in the world. It was his decision to go to war. It's our choice to make him pay a price. Same with the global community. And we believe these consequences are also going to have an impact.
Just at the risk of repeating your question as well, I mean, the president did also say, let's check in a month, and there has been some questions about time here. It seems like this is a strategy to use these sanctions to put pressure on Russia to eventually discourage them to pull out, or to force them to pull out this advance. So what is the timetable here, you think, for when the Russian government will start actually feeling the impact of these sanctions and possibly pull out?
Well, in many senses, they're already feeling the impact. I mean, look at where the ruble is. Look at where inflation is. Look at where the markets are in Russia. In terms of how Putin will feel the impact, we just sanctioned a range of oligarchs around him. We sanctioned 10 financial institutions. These are all significant, enormous steps that are going to have an impact on him. But in terms of the moment by moment, I can't give you an assessment of that.
Just off topic, there's been a lot of questions about refugees in the region. For Ukrainians that are in the country. Is the U.S., especially after yesterday, considering TPS or any sort of protection?
Sure. As you know, that's a decision that would be made through an interagency process led by the Department of Homeland Security, and I don't have any prediction of that. I mean, I don't have any kind of prediction of that at this point in time. Obviously, these events are just unfolding as we speak.
That process hasn't started, that conversation?
I'm not going to give you any specifics on an internal process, but I would just say, again, it's an interagency process, and right now we're, of course, in the middle of an invasion and a war in Ukraine. Go ahead.
Thanks, Jen. Earlier you had said you have to do a lot of things at the same time. One of those things, of course, is the State of the Union next week.
Yes.
Can you tell us how the president this week has been preparing for that, how much time he spent on this speech, and how he's juggling that with this very busy schedule that you laid out earlier tonight?
Yeah, absolutely. So in addition to obviously being very closely engaged and leading the effort on the U.S. response to the Russian military invasion of Ukraine, the president has been working with speechwriters, working with members of his policy team to finalize details of his State of the Union, starting to do some read-throughs, not too many yet. I expect those will increase in the days ahead. I expect we won't have too much of a preview for you, maybe tomorrow, but maybe more likely this weekend. He's also been engaging with his COVID team, talking about where we are in the state of the pandemic, what's next in the pandemic. He's been working closely with his economic team on and receiving updates on the supply chain, the implementation of the infrastructure bill. So even as we have all been understandably focused on the conflict in Ukraine, the president has been very hard at work on a range of issues that are vital to the American people.
You touched on my follow-up. ABC is reporting that the White House is revamping the COVID strategy now that hospitalizations are on the decline. Should we expect the president to roll that out in the speech next Tuesday?
I don't have any preview for you on timeline or format, but the president has been working and engaged with his COVID team for some time now, and we're making strong progress on moving toward a time when COVID is no longer a crisis. The COVID team has been spending a lot of time and energy, including with the president, working with experts inside and outside government, local public health officials and governors, and this work is broader than one piece of guidance. How we look at it is we're preparing to stay ahead of the virus, protecting our most vulnerable, keeping our country open, and that is going to look at everything from the CDC is obviously reviewing mask guidance, but also how we're going to ensure that vaccines, boosters, tests, treatments, and other important components of our medicine cabinet are available to the American people. Go ahead.
Thanks, Jen. I had a couple of questions.
Sure, and then I'll go to you next. Go ahead.
Thanks. I had a couple of questions. First, a follow-up about some of the humanitarian needs you've been talking about.
Sure.
You've talked about how much money and supplies are going to be going, but how are you going to ensure that those supplies get to the Ukraine?
Yeah.
Is there going to be some sort of airdrop? And would the president consider putting U.S. boots on the ground for humanitarian needs to make sure they get to the people that need them?
Well, we do have fortunately or unfortunately, a fair amount of experience on providing humanitarian assistance in conflict zones, and we typically work, and USAID specifically has a great deal of experience with that, working with trusted third-party entities, obviously the government, which remains in power. So there's a range of ways that we would provide assistance. In terms of other mechanisms, I don't have anything to predict for you at this point in time.
And then another question for you, and this has been happening while you've been up at the podium.
Okay.
So I'm not trying to ambush you, but I
Sure.
wanted to give you a chance to respond. Senator Ted Cruz is speaking at CPAC, and you came up. He called you "quote unquote" peppermint patty, and has encouraged people to boo you. So I wanted to.
Don't tell him I like peppermint patty. So I'm not going to take it too offensively. Senator Cruz, I like peppermint patty. I'm a little tougher than that, but there you go. Go ahead.
Hi, yeah, so back to the president's comments earlier today. So he did say to give it a month to see if these sanctions work.
Yeah.
However, under Russia's current assault, Ukraine clearly might not have a month or even weeks. So is it fair to say that he is conceding Ukraine to Putin?
There's nothing about the president's strategy or approach or leadership in the world, building a coalition of the majority of countries, in the Western world, to stand against the actions of President Putin, that suggests that he is ceding anything. You saw him lay out a set of historic sanctions today that will maximize pain on Russia. Yes, as we've conveyed, they're meant to have a squeeze over the course of time, but we're already seeing an impact on the financial markets, on the currency, on inflation in Russia, and there are unfortunately, the Russian people are going to feel the pain of that. So I would say the president is going to continue, as he has for weeks now, to work in close lockstep with European partners to continue to press from the global community for de-escalation as it relates to the events in Ukraine. Go ahead.
Thank you, Jen. If President Zelenskyy is in danger of being killed or captured and put on some sort of a show trial, would President Biden send U.S. troops in on a rescue mission to get him out?
Again, we are in touch with President Zelenskyy, who is an important partner. We support him. He's the leader of Ukraine, the president of Ukraine, but I'm not going to get into security steps.
Okay. There's this talk about a possible forecast for financial pain, particularly at the gas pump for Americans. The president said today, the notion that this is going to last for a long time is highly unlikely. Would he try to ensure that by lifting some of the restrictions that he's put in place on the energy industry, or rethinking some projects like the Keystone Pipeline?
Well, first of all, the Keystone Pipeline is not flowing, so I'm not sure how that would solve anything. There's also plenty of oil leases that are not being tapped into by oil companies, so you should talk to them about that and why. But what the president's talking about is we certainly understand, and he said this today, right? May have been in response to your question, I don't remember, but if there's an invasion of another country by a big country, there's going to be impacts on the markets, right? And we certainly anticipated that, and we anticipate that as it relates to the global oil market as well. So that's why the president for weeks now has been engaging with a range of big global suppliers, some in the Middle East, others, to see what we can do to ensure there's supply out there in the market to reduce the impact on the American people.
And the U.S. is one of the Russian oil industry's best customers, hundreds of thousands of barrels per day. Would the president ever consider ordering U.S. companies to stop importing Russian oil?
I don't have any prediction of that at this point, Peter. We announced some significant sanctions today. Our objective is to ensure there is the greatest economic pain on Russia, and not on the Russian people, but on President Putin, and to minimize the impact on the American people, including companies here in the United States. All right, thanks everyone. See you tomorrow.
The president said that he thinks that Putin's going to go and try to expand back the Soviet Union. So is this? Do you all think this is Act 1 in a multiple country invasion?
Well, I'm not going to make a prediction of that, but we certainly think he has grander ambitions in Ukraine.
To clarify that same point, does he believe that President Putin is going to absorb Ukraine into Russia when he says that President Putin wants to reestablish the Soviet Union? Is that what he's saying?
I think he believes that, as we all do, that President Putin has grander ambitions in Ukraine. Hence, the military campaign is continuing. Thanks, everyone. Thank you, everyone.
All of us from now on?
We'll do this more tomorrow.
All right, folks, as you guys heard, they think that Putin is going to start the USSR once again. Now, would that happen in the near future? Who knows? But stay tuned live here at Golden State Times for full coverage of everything that is going on regarding Russia and Ukraine, going on at the White House, in Congress, at the Senate, State Department, everything that you can think of, we cover here at Golden State Times. If you want to stay up to the second informed of everything that is going on, make sure you visit our website, goldenstatetimes.com. Again, that's www.goldenstatetimes.com. Thank you so much for joining us, and all the Patriots that shared our live stream, gave it a thumbs up. Thank you so much for keeping Golden State Times live here on YouTube. Also, we'd like to welcome a new member. Thank you so much for becoming a new member, believing in Golden State Times, and supporting the free press. The best way to help out Golden State Times is by telling people about us. That's number 1. 2, sharing the live stream on social media. 3, clicking the thumbs up button. And 4, becoming a new member. So then that way you can support Golden State Times all the time. Thank you so much, folks, and we will see you on the next one. Have a blessed rest of your day, and God bless every single one of you guys. Please pray for peace. And as you guys know, Jesus is King and God is in control. Thank you so much, great Patriots, and we will see you on the next one. Peace.